It's July 16th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with Donald Trump officially being nominated as a 2024 Republican nominee. Trump has officially become the Republican nominee 2 days after he survived an assassination attempt at his campaign rally in Pennsylvania. The former president picked the Senator of Ohio, J.D. Vance, to be his running mate and vice president. And U.S. stocks hit new records to kick off the week as investors raised their wagers that Trump will win the November election. The positive response on Wall Street also came with Fed Chair Jerome Powell's remarks that suggest a rate cut may not be far off. Majority of doctors who have walked away from their duties over government and medical admission quota expansion did not return to work on Monday, which was the final deadline that the government designated to process their resignations. Donald Trump on Monday was officially nominated as the Republican Party's presidential candidate. He also chose Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his vice presidential running mate. Our Lee starts us off.
Donald Trump has been officially nominated as the Republican Party's presidential candidate at the Republican National Convention. During the first day of the convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on Monday, the former U.S. president secured the nomination for this year's election, receiving a majority of votes from the 2,400 delegates. After an acceptance speech on the final day of the convention on Thursday, Trump would then be in place for a possible rerun of the 2020 election against Joe Biden on November 5th, although the incumbent president is facing increasing pressure from within his party not to run. Trump also announced his running mate on Monday, selecting Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his vice presidential pick. The 39-year-old who once said he was an anti-Trump Republican has since become Trump's supporter. Following the nomination, U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas on Monday announced that security measures for Trump have been increased in response to Saturday's shooting incident. Mayorkas also indicated that an independent investigation would address security concerns surrounding the assassination attempt. Despite an injury to his right ear sustained in the shooting, the former president is continuing his presidential campaign as scheduled. On Monday, it was also reported that Trump's criminal case over the mishandling of classified documents had been dismissed. A Trump-appointed U.S. district judge in Florida ruled that the appointment of special counsel Jack Smith, who filed the indictment against Trump, was unlawful. However, Smith's team indicated that they would appeal to the decision. Lee, Arirang News.
On the first day of trading on Wall Street since the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, Wall Street closed with record highs. Now, more bets on a Trump victory in the November election played a significant role. Lee has more.
It was feared that the weekend assassination attempt on U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump would bring uncertainty to the U.S. financial market. However, Wall Street responded with a record-high close for the Dow Jones and S&P 500 indexes. The Dow Jones closed up 210.82 points, or 0.53% from the previous trading session, to end Monday's trading session at a fresh record high of 40,211.72. The S&P 500, which has seen all-time highs being shattered regularly throughout the year, saw yet another record high, finishing the day at 5,631.22, up 15.87 points, or 0.28% from the previous trading session. Monday's trading also saw a number of stocks linked to Trump or his policies jump. Trump Media, the parent company of social networking service Truth Social, soared 31.4%, while Tesla, whose CEO Elon Musk has openly expressed his support for Trump, also closed up 1.8%. Energy-related stocks like ExxonMobil and Chevron, and the health insurance stocks like United Health rose due to expectations of deregulation following a possible Trump re-election. The market expectation is that if Trump does win the November U.S. presidential election, he will strengthen trade barriers, expand tax cuts, and ease regulations related to cryptocurrency and climate change responses. Meanwhile, Wall Street also responded positively to the increasing prospects of a September rate cut. U.S. Fed Chair Jerome Powell at an event at the Economic Club of Washington on Monday said that U.S. inflation data over the second quarter of this year added somewhat to confidence that the economy is on pace to reach the central bank's target inflation of 2%. While Powell did not directly mention a September rate cut, his comments suggest such a decision may not be far off. 이승재, Arirang News.
This balance we have between
A war of nerves continues between the two Koreas over the sending of waste-carrying balloons and propaganda leaflets over the border. The North now releases photos showing items from the South being burned. What are the North's intentions? We're joined by Stephen Norper, President of Asia Dialogue. It's great to have you back.
Thank you, Dami. Nice to be back.
South Korea's Unification Ministry said Monday that it was very unusual that North Korea released these photos showing, burning leaflets sent from the South. What does it mean by unusual? Why is the North releasing these photos?
Well, they want to show that they're creating a direct response to the interception of them. And that message is really aimed at South Korea and the South Korean groups that are doing that, as opposed to trying to inform the North Korean public per se. Hence, they didn't broadcast that widely among North Koreans themselves, whom they may not want to know have such things exist. So this is part of the propaganda back and forth, and tensions are high when it comes to that rhetoric now.
But the thing is, the photos weren't published in the North state-run newspaper, the 노동신문, which ordinary people in the North have access to. Why is that? Why is the North not releasing those photos everywhere?
Well, most likely because they don't want North Koreans to be looking for or find these. By printing them, they would be acknowledging that they exist, whereas the anger is really targeted towards the ROK groups that are sending these, some with DPRK defectors. And so the North is trying to show its anger at this in a way where they are lighting them and expressing verbally their strong opposition to these continuing.
Right, because at the end of the day, those waste-carrying balloons or propaganda leaflets do serve propaganda purposes. And on top of that, the North Korean leader's sister, Kim Yo-jong, made a statement warning of further retaliation against Seoul. What kind of retaliatory acts can we expect from the North? I mean, more leaflets, more balloons? What do you think?
Well, you're likely to see both. You're likely to see the balloon activity continue. It's an irritant to South Korea, and it irritates the public authorities, and it does force them to issue warnings to the South Korean public. So that's an irritant. But beyond that irritant in the war of words, there are other points that the North Koreans are raising, especially in opposition to the nuclear pact between the United States and South Korea and the coordinated activity and upcoming exercises among the United States, South Korea, and Japan. And so North Korea is trying to register its disdain for this and present a clear opposition. What it reminds us is that this rhetoric can get heated. We have to be careful not to take it overboard, and that we need to try to cool the tone a bit, to lower the volume, as it were, so that we don't lead to provocations or some sort of continued crossings at the border, things that would raise tensions and lead to an escalatory effect.
Definitely. But the question is, why does the North continue to choose to send these waste-carrying balloons? I mean, is this because it's the easiest way to tick South Korea off? Why the balloons?
Well, that's essentially it. I mean, it is an irritant. It's foul. It's base. They know that it bothers South Koreans, and so they continue to push. It's also low cost, and it's effective in creating an irritant. But clearly, we need to get back to a position where we're calmer in tone, where we don't overreact to these or overplay them, and in that way reward North Korea's propaganda effort. So it's important to keep a measured response.
Does that mean a possibility of missile provocations cannot be ruled out?
No, clearly there will be some activity that may be designed around the military exercises taking place among the trilateral partners. They're unhappy about the ship that has docked in South Korea. They're unhappy about this nuclear enhancement, and they're looking for excuses to express that. It also, from their perspective, creates a rationale for their nuclear development. So we need to be careful on all those fronts. It's important that we create lines of communication and that we get UN and foreign missions back in Pyongyang so that we have every available contact, in that inter-Korean contacts are very poor right now. So we need those lines of communication to prevent a skyrocketing in the rhetoric and a skyrocketing in the risk. We need to limit that risk, and to do so, opening other forms of communication would be helpful, and getting back to negotiating tables ultimately is what we're looking for.
Indeed, and the Unification Ministry spokesperson reiterated the government's long position to take necessary steps that the North would find hard to endure. Now, what kind of steps? I mean, does that mean more propaganda broadcasts from South Korea?
It may mean that, in terms of heightened broadcast and a return to that sort of activity, which is loud and disruptive. But it may also lead to further coordination, of course, with the United States and Japan in terms of contingencies. We've seen that with this nuclear compact. And it will create, again, a firmer reaction. So with the war of words back and forth, it is imperative to tone it down, to soften rhetoric, and to try to seek other partners, be they the United Nations, be they friendly foreign countries. And perhaps South Korea will have to turn to those who are difficult at times, be it China, be it Russia, to try to open those lines of communication with North Korea and create a little bit more of a stable dialogue.
All right, Dr. Norbert, thank you as always for your time and your insights. You have a wonderful day.
Aloha, and thank you.
Monday was the last day for trainee doctors who left their workplaces in protest against the government's medical reform plan to decide either to return to work or resign. And most of them expressed no willingness to return to work. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
The majority of trainee doctors did not return to their hospitals on Monday, the due date for a final decision as to whether they will return or resign. Before that, training hospitals sent text messages asking them to provide an answer by Monday noon. According to the Big Five hospitals in Seoul, very few trainee doctors responded. The hospitals have said that if the trainee doctors do not return or respond, their resignations will be processed automatically. The trainee doctors who have refused to return since taking part in a massive walkout against the government's medical reform plan are saying that the medical school admissions quota hike issue has not been fundamentally resolved. According to the government, as of last Thursday, only 69 out of a total of 10,506 trainee doctors in all 211 training hospitals who submitted resignation letters had their resignations accepted. Also, only around 8% of trainee doctors are working at hospitals currently. After the resignations are processed, hospitals will recruit new trainee doctors starting in September, while it's reported that almost none of them are planning to reapply for training positions. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports of information and communication technology products hit a record high for the month of June again, staying on an upward trend for 8 straight months. And solid demand for chips kept the figure strong. Our Lee Soo-jin with details.
Semiconductors once again led the increase in South Korea's tech exports last month. Data released by the Trade Ministry on Monday shows that ICT exports in June reached $21 billion. That's an increase of 31.1% compared to the same time the previous year. It's also the largest ever recorded for the month of June and the third straight month that tech exports have seen an on-year increase of more than 30%. This was driven by outbound shipments of chips also reaching a record high last month. Chip exports surpassed a previous record set in March 2022 on the back of growth in the AI market and a recovery in the sales of IT devices. Memory chip exports were especially high thanks to the increased demand for high-value products like high-bandwidth memory chips. As for other tech exports, display saw double-digit export growth for the 5th consecutive month, and computers also saw a rise for the 6th straight month. By country, South Korea's exports to China, the nation's biggest destination for ICT exports, saw an on-year increase for the 8th consecutive month in June. Shipments to other nations such as the United States and the European Union also rose, but there was a slump in exports to Japan. Meanwhile, ICT imports last month dropped 5.1% on year due to fewer inbound shipments of chips and rechargeable batteries. As for the first half of the year, ICT exports rose 28.2% to $109 billion, the second largest amount of exports on a 6-month basis. This was also driven by outbound shipments of chips rising nearly 50% on year on the back of strong demand. During the January to June period, other tech exports such as displays and computers saw a double-digit increase compared to the previous year. And exports to China during this period rose more than 37% on year. Imports, on the other hand, fell on year, leading to a trade surplus of $41 billion. 이수진, Arirang News.
South Korea is one step closer to securing its first ever arms deal with the U.S. With its domestically developed Bigung guided missile having successfully passed the final test conducted by the Pentagon. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung has more.
South Korea's Bigung Poniard guided rocket system has passed the final test needed for potential use in the U.S. The weapon, developed by defense company LIG Next One in cooperation with the Agency for Defense Development, was test-fired in waters off Hawaii last Friday on the sidelines of the Rim of the Pacific maritime exercise. LIG Next One announced Monday that the Bigungs successfully hit all 6 targets. Friday's test was the last in a series of successful evaluations conducted by the U.S. Defense Department over the past 5 years. It has shown a 100% hit rate in all foreign comparative tests aimed at evaluating whether foreign weapons satisfy valid defense requirements for use in the U.S. The Bigung is a 70mm low-cost guided imaging rocket that can be fired from land, sea, and air. It's known for its cost-effectiveness and ability to accurately hit multiple targets at once. Friday's success marks a significant milestone as it would open the door for exports, representing the first time a complete South Korean-made weapon system is integrated into Washington's arsenal.
Exports would come following a budget approval by the US Congress and a contract procedure after the test launch. We are working on this in many ways.
A day before the launch, the U.S. Chief of Naval Operations Admiral Lisa Franchetti visited the South Korean Navy's vessel, the Cheonjabong, where the test launch took place, to take a closer look at the weapon. She said the launch test of Bigung during RIMPAC 2024 marks another advancement in integrating unmanned systems into U.S. naval operations. Commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Samuel Paparo also showed great interest in the South Korean weapon.
If we're not curious about each other's capabilities, we do each other a tremendous disservice. So of course, I'm interested in this. And if we could find ways to build it either on license from each other, or we find ways to build it on export from each other, if it works and if it's good and if it benefits our alliance, we should do it.
Following the successful test results, South Korea would now have to see if it could clinch its first ever defense export deal with the U.S. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
NATO will open a liaison office in Geneva where UN-affiliated organizations are concentrated. According to a statement from the Swiss government on Monday, it signed an agreement with the military alliance during a ceremony in Bern. The agreement covers the legal status of NATO's Geneva liaison office, the privileges and immunities of its staff. While Switzerland is not a NATO member country, it has been operating a partnership program to strengthen cooperation with the alliance in various fields since last year. NATO is expected to use the office to carry out close cooperation with various UN agencies headquartered in the city, including the UN Human Rights Council and the Conference on Disarmament.
Good morning. I'm Kim Si-young, and this is The World Now. The European Union on Monday announced sanctions against 5 Israeli individuals and 3 entities for what it described as serious and systematic human rights abuses against Palestinians in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The EU sanctioned far-right activists Bentzi Gopstein and Baruch Mazel. It also sanctioned settler activists Moshe Sharvid, Zviva Yosef and Issachar Man, who each ran or created illegal outposts. The EU also targeted Sav9, an activist group that has attempted to sabotage the delivery of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. Under the EU global human rights sanctions regime, all people listed on Monday are subject to a travel ban to the EU and will have their external assets frozen. All mentioned individuals and entities, except for Marzel, have already been sanctioned by the United States. UNICEF said on Monday that due to an escalation of fighting in Sudan's Sennar state, some 50,000 people displaced by the country's civil war have sought refuge in the town of Qadarif in eastern Sudan, with authorities expecting more to arrive in the coming days. The United Nations said on Thursday that while they set up talks aimed at brokering possible ceasefires to facilitate humanitarian aid and protect civilians, only one of the warring parties showed up. The civil war in Sudan between the National Army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces erupted in April last year over the integration of forces in a transition to democratic elections. The UN estimates that nearly half of Sudan's population, some 25 million, are in need of aid and under threat of a famine, while almost 10 million have been forced to flee their homes. Kenyan police said on Monday that they have arrested a suspected serial killer who confessed to killing 42 women, including his wife. Police said that 33-year-old suspect Collins Jumaisi was arrested after 9 bodies were found at a quarry close to Jumaisi's home in Nairobi. They also found mobile phones and identity cards at the suspect's home, as well as a machete, industrial rubber gloves, sellotape and nylon sacks allegedly used in the murders. According to authorities, Jumaisi confessed to luring and killing the women before dumping their remains at the quarry, adding that the murders began with his wife in 2022, with the most recent killing on the 11th of July. Argentinians celebrated a record 16th Copa America title after beating Colombia in the final of South America's regional football competition. After a goalless 90 minutes, the match went to extra time before Argentina's Inter Milan striker Lautaro Martinez scored the only goal of the game with the 112th minute strike. That goal at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida, gave Argentina a second consecutive Copa America title. Sunday's game also marked the final international appearance of Argentina's 36-year-old Angel Di Maria, who said Copa will be his last international tournament.
Good morning. Chungcheongdo provinces and southern regions are having a rainy Tuesday morning, and heavy monsoon rain that soaked the south coast has moved to the east, downgrading a rain warning to an advisory. More monsoon rain is in the forecast for Jeju through lunchtime, and southern provinces will see rain until late tonight. However, central regions will see monsoon rain arriving this afternoon, pouring down tomorrow at dawn with up to 100 millimeters of downpour is expected. Now, temperature-wise, the capital and Jeju had a tropical night, and western regions are under heat advisories, especially in Gwangju and nearby areas today. Seoul sees a high of 30 degrees Celsius. Daejeon and Gyeongju should see a high of 29 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Now, heavy monsoon rain is in the forecast tomorrow and Thursday in central parts of the country. It's going to be rain-free on Jeju for the rest of the week, but people there need to brace for searing heat. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.
Welcome. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
We're just going to get 1 tablespoon of oil. Take the lid off and just give them a shake. Shake every couple of minutes. I think it does that much, but it really stands out. And the depth of the soy sauce and the garlic, just, oh.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, July 16th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Kwon Ji-yeon.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. As usual, we're going to begin with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online. The International Olympic Committee will hold the first ever Olympic esports games in Saudi Arabia next year. The two sides signed a 12-year partnership to regularly hold the games. Saudi Arabia recently hosted a 2-month-long esports World Cup in Riyadh. The announcement comes after the IOC announced that its executive board has established the Olympic esports games. The partnership will be proposed to the general meeting of IOC members, which will be held on July 25th on the eve of the Paris 2024 Olympics. Here in Korea, the National Forensic Service has concluded that the tragic car crash near Seoul City Hall 2 weeks ago was likely due to driver error. According to the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency on Monday, the NFS reached this conclusion after analyzing the car, its black box, and the event data recorder. Their analysis indicated that the driver, a bus driver in his late 60s, pressed the accelerator pedal to 90% of its full capacity. A previous investigation revealed that the accelerator pedal in the driver's car is shaped similarly to the brake pedal in the bus he drives for work. The police will further investigate the accident, considering the possibility that the driver may have mistakenly pressed the accelerator instead of the brake after realizing he was driving the wrong way on a one-way road. New data shows that the number of YouTubers in their 20s or younger earning over 100 million Korean won annually, which is approximately $72,000, has increased 2.5 times in just 2 years in Korea. According to the National Tax Agency on Monday, out of the 2,781 YouTubers who reported annual earnings exceeding 100 million won, nearly half, 1,324 creators, were 20 years or old or younger. Now, here in the studio, you guys both are YouTubers, you are content creators. So what do you think are some of the reasons behind this fast-growing financial success of young content creators?
I think it's, something that a lot of younger generations strive to be. A long time ago, when you asked people my age what you wanted to be, obviously there was no such thing as a YouTuber.
Right.
And you wanted to be a police officer or whatever, but now everyone wants to be a YouTuber. And therefore, we are finding younger and younger people becoming YouTubers, and they're pumping out great content, and they're doing it on a regular basis, which is something you should do as a YouTuber. And they have the fandom, and they know what's trending at the time, and they're creating what's trending at the time as well. I got to say though, both like you said, Ji-hyun and I are both YouTubers, and I'm not one of those 1,000 or so people that are making the $70,000 US a month. But I don't know how about you, Ji-hyun, but I'm definitely not making. I'd be happy to make half of that. So, but yes, they're doing some great stuff out there, and I only hope to be a part of it one day.
I think you have the potential, Walter.
Thank you very much.
Do it. Well, but as much as these young YouTubers are reaping in a lot of revenue, the data also highlights that sponsorship money received by these YouTubers through their personal bank accounts is not included in their declared income, making it difficult to collect taxes on such earnings. So what do you think about this, Jian, as a YouTuber yourself?
Well, as a YouTuber myself, it's concerning to see the complexities around income reporting here, especially with sponsorships that you mentioned that are not easily traceable. Ensuring transparency and fair taxation is kind of very important for all creators, and it's quite important that authorities find effective ways, some good ways to address these challenges. So keeping up with taxes is as important as keeping up with new video trends.
Right, these are both of our YouTube creators who I think will be able to reach this revenue mark very soon in the near future. Fingers crossed. And that was was our news feed for this Tuesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day by taking a look at the screen. In Korea, it's becoming pretty normal for consumers to handle everything themselves in stores, from picking out a product to paying at the checkout and bagging up the purchases. This is because self-service unmanned stores are on the rise. These are stores with no staff, not even a cashier. So why are these stores becoming so popular in Korea, and what does the younger generation think about them? Right, so today we're going to talk about the rise in unmanned stores, especially here in Korea, and we really started seeing more of these stores after strict social distancing rules were put in place due to COVID-19 and also rising labor costs, which is making it tough for business owners to hire staff. So let's first talk about how many unmanned stores are we seeing here in Korea, Jian?
Well, due to COVID-19, there has been a significant increase in contactless services, resulting in a rapid growth of unmanned stores in Korea over a certain period of time. If you look at the screen, according to Civic News, in 2017, there were about 880 of these unmanned stores, unmanned ice cream stores, especially in Korea. And fast forward to 2022, that number has skyrocketed to over 4,000.
Wow.
It marks a five-fold increase in just 5 years. And this surge highlights a growing preference for convenient, tech-driven retail experiences among consumers. And according to data from the retail industry, as of May, the number of unmanned stores is estimated to be over 100,000.
Right. So we're definitely seeing the number of these stores grow. And I think that as much as we're seeing an increase in the number of stores, we're seeing these unmanned stores becoming more diverse because before they were mostly unmanned convenience stores or the ice cream shops that you mentioned, right?
There are loads of different unmanned stores in Korea. In addition to coin singing rooms, unmanned laundry services are here, bookstores and bakeries, unmanned photo booths. Korea also has unmanned cafes, vending machines, instant noodle shops, and even self-service kiosks for various services like food ordering and ticket purchases as well.
A lot of unmanned stores that we're seeing. Anything you'd like to add to the variety of unmanned stores in Korea, Walter?
It seems that you can almost unman anything these days. So like flower shops as well are very popular these days. Sandwich shops, hotels, parking lots, eggs, meat, I guess you name it. It seems that it can be unmanned these days.
Right. So especially the reason why we're talking about this topic today is because a younger generation is known to be really into these stores. They are major users of these stores. So as part of this generation, what kind of unmanned stores have you visited or you normally visit?
Well, ice cream shops, unmanned ice cream shops, I'm fond of it. But personally, I find myself visiting unmanned ice cream shops about 2 to 3 times a week.
Wow.
As I have a particular fondness for ice cream. These shops are conveniently located and offer a very pleasant atmosphere, making them delightful places to visit. And I also appreciate unmanned coffee shops. The absence of labor costs allow me to enjoy high quality coffee at a reasonable price. And there is an unmanned side dish shop near my residence, which I often visit when I don't want to cook. And when I visit unmanned stores, I appreciate being able to thoroughly check the ingredients, calorie information, without feeling pressured by the store owner. Plus, no one's there to judge my snack choices.
Right. And I think I definitely agree with you on the reason why we love to use these unmanned stores, because personally, I feel less pressure when I'm going to an unmanned store because I can take as much time as I want to look over the products and I don't have to feel the pressure of the business owner or the staff waiting for me to check out my products. Now to you, Walter, what kind of unmanned shops do you like to use?
Well, like Jihyun, and as we've mentioned on the show many times, I am also a big fan of ice cream.
Eating 4 ice creams a day.
Eating 4 ice creams in a day. So that means more than 1 trip to the ice cream shop per day. There are quite a lot of unmanned stores in my area as well, and like for instance, ice cream shops and cafes. I much prefer going to the unmanned ice cream shop, as you guys have mentioned, because basically you get to roam free. It's like a kid in a candy store, basically. You get to roam free and be amongst all the ice creams and think about what you want without the pressure of the store owner going, hurry up, I need to, go and do something else or stack the shelves or whatever. However, I sort of am on the other side. Jihyun said that she likes to go to these unmanned cafes. I'm not one of those people who seems to be quite interested in them because
why?
I like to go to a cafe for the atmosphere. I like to go to the cafe to study as well. And those places don't really have the either facilities or the atmosphere that I enjoy when it comes to cafes. And I really don't see a lot of people visiting the ones in my neighborhood. So I don't know if they're going to catch on, in my opinion, but maybe they will a bit later on in life when people become less, social, as we are continuously becoming less social. So yes, who knows?
Right, we'll have to see. But we're definitely seeing an increase in the number of unmanned stores here in Korea. But to find out if these stores are a global trend, we also asked our viewers if their countries have these stores and which types are popular. And here's what 3 of them had to say. So if we look at the comments, Chip says in Canada, I've only seen unmanned stands at farms for things like flowers, fruits, vegetables, eggs, and firewood. Leon says, yes, unmanned stores are gaining popularity in Singapore. The most popular type of unmanned stores are convenience stores. Tasmia says there is only one unmanned store in Bangladesh, but it's outside the capital. It sells only stationary items and only accepts cash payment. It's unmanned to teach integrity to students and adults. So looking at the comments, we can see that Korea isn't the only country with these unstaffed stores, but the industry has grown a lot here, with some international news outlets even saying that unmanned stores are becoming a defining feature of Korea's commercial landscape. So I want to ask our panelists, why do you think that this industry has become so huge here in Korea?
Well, many Koreans are big fan of unmanned shops because they offer quick services, convenient and tech-savvy experiences. These places save time, and we can avoid some human interactions, are often open 24/7. And due to the absence of labor costs, the prices of drinks are lower, making these establishments more affordable to launch like cafes. So many members of the Gen Z generations are starting their own businesses in these kind of areas, taking advantage of the reduced financial barriers to entry.
So running these unmanned stores, not only using them, seems to have benefits when compared to running a manned store. Now, do you agree on this, Walter?
Yes, I definitely agree with it. And I also think that we're in the right society to do it. We're a very safe society. We're a very caring about other people's society, which we'll get into a little bit later. But not only that, it's also a great way of making money and also being able to run a part-time job at the same time. Right. So if you're able to, from day to day, fill up your unmanned store, but then on the weekends do a part-time job, that's almost like basically doing a full-time job, but without the full-time hours. So I think that's also a great way of making money, and maybe I should invest in an unmanned store sometime soon.
Maybe we should. Now, to find out more about this popularity of unmanned stores, we're now going to invite an expert to our talks right after this break. So today we're joined by Dr. Alex Barash, Associate Professor of Marketing at the University of Colorado at Boulder. Welcome, Doctor, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today. So our first question for you is, what are some reasons business owners are choosing to open unmanned stores?
Well, let's start off with the supply side, or the business reasons for doing this. You guys have mentioned a few of them already. Labor is getting more expensive in pretty much every country, and this is leading more and more businesses to try and automate their processes wherever possible. So you've seen that with the increased usage of chatbots or robots. In this case, with unmanned stores, it reduces the need for human labor. That obviously means greater efficiencies and cost savings. And as you guys also mentioned, mentioned, it gives business owners the opportunity or flexibility to invest their time in other stores or other opportunities that present themselves. Business owners also care about what consumers want, and so the fact that consumers care about convenience and time savings, that's a good enough reason to invest in these types of stores. Consumers don't want to have small talk with a cashier for just grabbing a couple of quick items. And I'd say it's especially true in the case for certain products. You guys mentioned ice cream, but think about clothing stores as well, where you can feel self-conscious or you want a little bit more privacy. You don't want to feel judged about what you're choosing or how long you're taking. There's more and more research showing that millennials and Generation Z care about this a lot, and they don't like to have those little side interactions when they can be more efficient.
So why do you think unmanned stores have become so popular here in South Korea compared to other countries?
Yeah, that's really interesting to me, and I think it's very clear that Korea's fast-paced culture plays a big part in that. That type of culture means that consumers especially appreciate the time savings and the efficiencies, even more than consumers in other countries. I would also say it's worth noting that in many countries around the world where there are people who kind of try to hold on to the more traditional local marketplaces, even when there are way more convenient ways to shop, they're forgetting about the way that these efficiencies can also just mean that they can be more deliberate or intentional about who they do spend their time with. And so I think it's really interesting to see these unmanned stores so popular and successful in Asian countries where people realize that they don't have to get their social needs met from transactional contexts. They don't need to talk to a human in a store. You'd rather spend that time interacting with family and friends and other people who are just more important in the community.
I'm loving your answers. I've actually been open, like I never thought about some of these answers that you're coming up with, but are there any risks that come with the unmanned stores?
Yeah, the obvious ones, of course, we have to say theft, security, safety, potential damage to products and cleanliness. Those are things that business owners mention a lot as reasons or issues that they have to face. Another interesting one is just quality control. So you mentioned, buying fresh fish in an unmanned store. What do you do if you don't know how fresh the fish is and you don't have somebody there to ask those questions to? Some people are concerned with being able to provide a personal touch. But in my opinion, I think all of these problems can mostly be solved by interacting with consumers in other ways, like through social media. And in general, a lot of the risks and benefits depend on the product category. So some products do require expertise from somebody who knows more about the product and can offer personalization. And some products and convenience stores in particular, the impersonal and efficiencies works really well. So I think it's going to be really up to the marketplace to decide which ones become the product categories where you see more of these types of stores. Regardless, it's important for business owners to still stay up to date on consumer trends, even if they're not interacting with consumers as regularly. So that's just something to think about if you're considering opening up one of these stores.
Definitely something we should think about. All right, Dr. Bras, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Right, so as we just talked about in our interview, these unmanned stores, as much as the benefits they bring, there are some risks. So they aren't completely risk-free, right?
No. Well, but we do know that Korea is known for its high level of public safety. People can leave their belongings, their stuff in cafes without worrying about robbery or stealing still. However, like any public place, these stores are not entirely risk-free. Issues such as technical malfunctions, unauthorized access, or occasional incidents of minor stealing or robbery can be an issue. And the use of cameras and other monitoring technologies in unmanned stores can raise privacy concerns among customers. Despite these challenges, there are many heartwarming stories about honest people using the unmanned stores. I experienced this firsthand. I once left my credit card at an unmanned ice cream store without realizing it for 2 days. And 2 days later, when I returned back, I found my credit card exactly where I'd left it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Didn't use it.
Right, so I think that these stories and these examples are really what helps these stores get going, because they are still, in fact, safe, though there are issues still needs to be solved. Now, Walter, are there any examples that you'd like to add?
Yes, so there was actually something in the paper about a student who was at one of those self-photo studios where you take photos. It comes out as a Polaroid, and a big trend these days is to wear funny hats or sunglasses or whatever it may be, and it's becoming massive all around the city and country itself. Now, the thing is that those headbands, those glasses, they're cheap stuff, and they would break easily. And I guess most of us, if we did break one of these headbands or glasses or whatever, may just think, oh, you know, it's just, they've got too many of them, I don't need to do anything about it. But one student actually decided to leave money behind and cover the cost of the headband, which probably wasn't that much, but still, they were kind enough to leave money behind. So that is a heartwarming story from our community.
That's so lovely and nice to hear. But like, despite these issues, with rapid technological development and high demand, many expect the human-free retail industry to keep going. Ending off today, we talked about these unmanned stores. We even talked about our future plans that we might open one in the future. So are there any unmanned stores that you'd like to see or open in the future?
Yeah, imagine smart beauty stores with AI-powered skincare advisors or eco-friendly refill stations for household essentials. And why not create an educational unmanned center powered by AI? Students could just visit anytime to ask questions and study at their own pace, with AI analyzing their levels and offering personalized support. It's like a private tutor. So welcome to the future where your shopping cart is smarter than you, and robots are there to assist with your homework. They're not going to do homework for you, but you have to get some help from them, making learning more efficient than ever.
Well, I think you're ready to open your unmanned store. I think it would be highly successful. Now, Walter, share your ideas too, please.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's a double-edged sword. You know, on one hand, it is convenient, and for some reason, we are, like I mentioned before, seem to be distancing ourselves away from each other. But it's also giving less jobs to the people out there who need it. And some people, including students, including anyone, to be honest with you, do need a job, whether that be working at a cafe, working at a restaurant, etc., etc. So for me, I am happy with the amount of stores that we have at the moment. I still think unmanned cafes aren't really going to be a thing, just due to here in Korea, we really like our individualized cafes and all the beautiful pictures we can take, and there's not really much to the unmanned cafes, to be honest with you. Ice cream stores, I don't think will damage convenience stores, because we go to convenience stores for other reasons, and ice cream just happens to be something there, so I don't think they're going to damage those stores. So if we can find a good balance between like having unmanned stores and having manned stores, that would be a great thing for us to have. So I'm okay with the amount of stores we have at the moment.
I think this is something we should definitely think about as we move ahead. And that's all from us today, but NewsGen will be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Korea time for more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks today to Kwon Ji-yeon.
My pleasure.
And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And before we say goodbye, Arirang TV is conducting a program survey, including News Generation, in order to meet our viewers' expectations. So please visit us at the link below or the mobile app Arirang TV for your valuable feedback, including NewsGen, and take part in a chance to receive Bluetooth earbuds and K-pop merch. Once again, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.